Welcome to the T Rose Show. That's your host, Keith. I have some more things to talk about. This is about the narrow way number 6, and I'm only going to go a couple of steps through the narrow way. Then I have some other things that I need to talk about, and we'll get started here. So after the marriage, this is what we started last time. It was there was the marriage and the agreements that are all made. And the next step, it's about 3 or 4 days, Earth time. Got to remember you're in kind of two different places at once. And Earth time, it's about 3 or 4 days, and then an angel came and got me from the field that I was in, just after the narrow way. And he brought me to before all the angels, the 2/3 of them. And believe me, all I can say is there are many of them. And it was in their home. They live in the mountains, so it was in their home that I was brought. I just was stood before them, and they all turned around and looked at me. And that was under Jesus's command. He said, "Go bring him before the angels." And I stood there and I looked at all of them. It was an amazing sight. Where they are, they're a beautiful place, absolutely beautiful. There's no trails though. That was the weird thing. Not a lot of places to walk. They do a lot of flying. Um, and they are who they say they are. And I said to them, "Thank you for not hurting our Father in heaven like the third of the angels did. Thank you for not doing that." And they were stunned. They didn't expect that. I believe what they expected was what I kind of felt at the time was they were expecting some little bratty kid, to show how awesome they are. But that didn't happen. You need to remain very humble in heaven. I'm just on the narrow way. Otherwise, you will have your butt handed to you. You need to remain humble. Because you're given your inheritances back through Yahushua, and that's what he's doing. So after that, I got a name, and it was put on a white rock. And then I was in a garden with chairs all around it was like an oval table. And they said that this is where Jesus convenes. And it's amazing. That's all I can tell you. It's the most amazing thing that you'll ever go through. There are flowers everywhere, and it smells like flowers all the time. Every kind of flower you can imagine. Vivid colors. The stone is hard. It feels just like it does here, and it's absolutely amazing. And I'll tell you what happens later, because you end up going into the city. But there's a couple of things that I need to warn people about, as to what's happening and what has caused the people in the United States to fall and to falter, and why it's going to be destroyed unless it turns around. This is what's going on, okay? And this comes to like trainees. Okay, what happens with people that call themselves transgender? This has to deal with that issue. I know it's a very hot topic right now because this stuff is just being thrown everywhere. But you have to realize that it is not what it seems to be. I'm going to give you an example. A man is a man, a woman is a woman. Okay. A man cannot feel like a woman because he's a man. There is no way that he is ever going to be able to understand how a woman feels. Why? Because he's not a woman. So when they say, well, I feel like a woman inside, how do you know? How would you know? You have no idea how a woman feels. You can put on all the dresses you want. You can put the makeup on. You can act like a little silly thing. You can act like a chick, but you're not a girl. So there's no way you're going to be able to understand what that feels like. Well, I've been a woman my whole life. No, you haven't. You've been a man your whole life. Okay. And that is just the way it is. A woman cannot tell a man how he feels. She's no way she could understand how that is. She can empathize with what she feels externally and what she sees and is witnessing, but she cannot feel it. She doesn't understand what a man feels, how he feels, and everything else, how he thinks, the whole deal. It's absolutely impossible. So now that we have gone through that, you can tell that it is impossible for a man to feel like a woman because he's not a woman. We all know that. This is why women doctors used to come in or coming into play because the women know what other women think and feel. They can relate to each other. They all get that. So what I want to bring out is if that is the case, and I believe absolutely it is, this man is under a delusion. When you're under that kind of delusion, there's only one place that comes from, and that would come from our Father in heaven through Jesus. When you reject his son, you fall under a delusion. And everybody can see how diluted this really is and how diluted it has become because they rejected our Father. And now they say, oh, men can have babies. That's not true. We're not gonna fall under that delusion. Okay. Now they call you homophobe, transphobe, all these things. And that's a delusion. There's no such thing as homophobic. It doesn't exist. What truly does exist is how did you get into that delusion in the first place? And that was by rejecting Jesus and his Father, our Father Yahweh, and his Son Jesus. That's how that works. He said he would do that. He would put you under a grand delusion, a great delusion. So what we're looking at here is there's no such thing as a tranny. Okay, no such thing. It doesn't exist. You cannot transition from one sex to the other. Not going to happen. So what's really going on? And what's really going on is they rejected our Father in heaven and Jesus. And when they did, they were put under a delusion. They themselves may truly believe it, but it's still a delusion, no matter which way it is, because the facts don't add up. I personally don't believe in science, so I'm not even gonna. I won't bring that up as a criteria or a basis of to leap off of as dealing with this kind of thing. Well, science says this, and that. It doesn't matter what science says. It matters what the book says, and the book says a man is a man, a woman's a woman. So those are facts. So this is what's happening. They are denying, and then what they're doing is they're trying to gain rights outside after rejecting our Father in heaven and Jesus. They're trying to gain rights. They're trying to gain independence from our Father in heaven. Does that sound familiar to you guys? Who's the only other one that's been trying to do that for what? Oh, I guess we can say anywhere from 6 to 12,000 years. Whenever they they fell from heaven and fell on Mount Hermon, which, by the way, is the oldest church in the world up there on Mount Hermon. That's where the UN has United Nations has a base on Mount Hermon. So what they're trying to do is gain rights. I've listened to other people talking about the seraphim, and these are beings that believe they're going to war with the Father. They believe that they're going to win. Truly do believe this. Military knows about these guys. Obviously CIA does. So what we're talking about here is they want you to accept what they're doing, and therefore you become an ally. So it doesn't matter if you're a man and you want to put women's clothes on. That doesn't matter. Okay. That part is not what's important. What's important is what they're really trying to get you to do, which is go to war with your Father in heaven. They're trying to get you to accept the fact, or accept, there's no fact here, but it's just to accept that they have the right to rebel against their Father in heaven. And that's what they're saying. Hey, I've made a decision. I've rebelled. That's what they're saying. And if you don't agree with me, I'm going to barrage you with insults and call you names and say that you're homophobe and everything else for as long as I can, because you haven't agreed and or has not become my ally against our Father in heaven. That's what's happening. If you think that you've been a woman your whole life and you're a man, you're a biological man, and you think you're a woman, well, I'm sorry, you've been under a delusion for a very long time. But that's the way it is. So you're asking people, and when the people in the United States, the U.S. citizens, if you want to call yourselves that, that's a delusion in itself, by the way. There's no constitution in the world that says U.S. citizen. Just letting everybody know if you haven't heard that yet. No one accepts that status. If you want to go to war with him, fine. If that's what you want to do, there are consequences for that. It's called eternal hell. I know hell exists. I've been there. I've fallen down the tower or the hole, and I've been there. So you can sit there and say, oh, well, your God is this and your God is that. I don't care what you call him. I know different. And if you don't want to go down the narrow way and meet him and gain salvation, that is your freaking problem. This does not require me to, oh, we're going to shut him up or shut them up because I don't want to join in your war against our Father in heaven. If that's what you want to do, that's what you want to do. But folks, you accepted this gay marriage thing. That when you did that, when you didn't fight about it and go off on it, and you started saying, well, I got nothing against them. I got nothing but condemnation. And you just basically abandon your Father in heaven when he said that is an abomination. What they do is an abomination. When you abandon him, you went to war with him. You joined with the guy who says, I'm going to do this because I know it's morally wrong. And since he knows it's morally wrong, he's doing it on purpose. Therefore, there's intent, and therefore he is in rebellion of our Father in heaven. And He's not going to peace with him, not making any peace with him. You are not going to convert our Father in heaven. You're not going to convert Jesus. You're not going to convert the set apart spirit to accept two men getting married, two women getting married. It's not going to happen. I'm with them, not with you. You want to rebel? You're going to pay the price. And it's a price that you're not going to get out of. All this is a religious recruitment program. And that religion is called Satanism. That's all that's going on. The same is going on in Hollywood with the music industry and the movie industry. And it's going on in the LGBT industry. We have rights to do what we're doing. Yes, if you want to rebel against our Father in heaven, then if you want to call that a right, I call it stupid. But if that's what you want to use your choice to do, fine. Whatever, you're going to pay that price. When your last breath comes up, yeah, I know what happens to you. I know exactly what happens to you. There's different parts of hell for the different sins that you committed. So I know which part you go into. I'm not going to tell you. It's just going to be a surprise. If you want to continue to rebel. There have been people that have been in that state of rebellion, and they have turned. They've turned back to Jesus, and they've turned their lives around. They ended up. One I offered, or I observed. It's a woman. She ended up having children and a good marriage and everything else. And she thought she was lesbian. So there's a way for this to turn around for you. You don't have to do what you're doing. You don't have to be immoral. You're choosing it. And you're going to take responsibility for that choice. Whether you like it or not, doesn't matter if I say it or not, that's what's going to happen to you. You will take responsibility and you will pay the consequences of those choices. You are going after children, you're attacking them. That has been adjudicated already, and the sentence has been pronounced for that. You said you're going to attack them, and you did. It was the choir out in California that's sung a song about it. We're coming for your children. So if you want to go and corrupt those innocents, that's your choice. You want to rebel against your Father in heaven, that's your choice. But I'm going to tell you one thing. It is also a delusion that you gain rights outside and away from or separate from your Father in heaven and Jesus. Imagine, and the set apart spirit, imagine what those people in hell are telling you. Don't come here because they got out. They are outside of the presence of our Father, and they have zero rights, none whatsoever. There is no appeal for them. There's no right of appeal. They are stuck there forever, and there's nothing that anyone can do about it. That's what happens to you when you guys are trying to say we have gay rights. No, you don't. You don't have any rights outside of our Father in heaven and outside of Jesus and outside of the set apart spirit. That is the truth. And it will remain the truth forever. And it will remain the truth since it started. You have zero rights, but that which he gives you. And you sure shouldn't be using those rights against the one who gave them to you, who bestows those people. It's called God-given rights. Sure, people haven't heard that in a long time in this country. They're called God-given rights. But you start using those rights against him, start slapping him in the face like that, and doing things that you know for a fact are wrong, you're going to get what you deserve. That's what's going to happen. And there's a way to turn it around. It's called a decision. I think I'm going to stop fighting our Father in heaven. I think I'm going to turn to him. Now I'm going to ask about this straight gate, and I'm going to ask about the narrow way. I don't want this anymore. You just simply have to leave Babylon. You're in Babylon. You're in a lie. You're in a delusion. The whole creation of Babylon is based on sex. It's all based on it. Everything is based on it. Governments, religions, all of them. It's in there. The body of Christ is not based on that. His church is not based on on sex. So you have to leave Babylon. There are many that don't want to believe, and they still continue to do the same thing over and over and over. Even some of those that are on the narrow way end up getting stuck because they didn't leave Babylon. Okay, so that's what you got to do. This is a fair warning. I'll share more about the narrow way and more about heaven in the next in part 7. But right now, you have to reject these things. You cannot join these people. They're asking you to rebel against our Father in heaven, which means this is an offer. And they're trying to shame you into it. They're trying to manipulate you into it. They're trying to everything you could possibly imagine to get you to take the mark of the beast. And the mark of the beast is, in my humble opinion, war against your Father in heaven. To not stand up to what's going on here. This is not a gay lesbian thing. It's not any of that. It is a religion. It's called a devil worshiping religion to recruit you into rebellion against your Father in heaven. That's what's going on. That's what that LGBT community is doing. That's the basis of it. And if you can't see that, I'm sorry. If you have a son or a daughter that's gay, then I'm sorry. That's what's going to happen to them, and you know it. Don't start yelling at me because you don't like the truth. That is the truth. So thanks for listening to the T Rose Show. This was part 6 of the narrow way. In part 7, I'll talk a little bit more about what happens. Okay, because you start when you're going down the narrow way, you start losing your thinking. In other words, your I am is gone, and your ransom has been paid. But now he has to turn you back into his likeness. So this is what happened. Okay, and then I'll kind of go through that and let's so you know. What it sounds like is the curse of Adam turned us into something other than his likeness, his image or likeness. The narrow way through supernatural means brings us back to his likeness. So that's where you're going. You're going back to the likeness of our Father in heaven and Jesus. Okay? More accurately speaking, you're going to be into the likeness of Jesus. He's going to basically turn you into his likeness. When you're cursed, you're not there. So even in that curse, if you decide you don't want to rebel against your Father in heaven and Jesus and make war with them, that is the most honest answer you can have. That's the most honest thing you can do. because you're even under the influence of the curse, and you still don't want to be don't want to go to war with them. You don't want to reject them, and it's a good testimony. Just letting you know how this works. So thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.